Hello, everyone. Just a note, if you do need credit for this, they can stamp you on the way out in case you haven't been to one yet, so afterwards. Okay, good afternoon. My name's Mallory Sassman, and I'm a grad student in the school counseling department as well as a grad assistant in the psychology department. Welcome to our presentation entitled Gender Identity, Justice, and Equality. We are thrilled to have Ms. Janelle Kayla Crossley as our special guest today. Ms. Janelle Kayla Crossley is a trans woman and activist. She is the facilities manager at Manor Care Health Services. Ms. Crossley meets with legislators, is interviewed by the media, and speaks at universities and many other events in the central Pennsylvania area and beyond, including MU's Pride Fest. She will be co-hosting Millersville's first Gender Identity Festival in partnership with the Center for Sustainability in the spring of 2017. Ms. Crossley is the sponsor of a newly formed transgender support and educational group, mainly for transgender males, but all are welcome. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Janelle Kayla Crossley.
Hello, everybody. I want to thank Mallory for the wonderful introduction, and I want to thank the Center of Sustainability here at Millersville, and also my great friends, and Dr. Nadine Garner and Dr. Jason Baker, for having me here today to talk with you. Unfortunately, they can't be here. It's kind of sad for everybody, but they have another commitment, so yeah, they're not here. I'm going to start off with a question that I normally ask everybody that I talk with. Do we all know what the word transgender actually is? Anybody that does not? Don't be shy. Okay, Mallory, you don't?
Not really, I guess.
Not the main. Okay. Transgender is an individual that is born with one gender and identifies as another. Transgender has nothing to do with sex. You get into transsexual, that is something somebody is sexually. A lot of times when I talk about transgender, I get people saying, you know, transgender means sexual or sexual activity. That's wrong. Okay, sex is something you take to bed. Gender is who you are. That's one good way to remember it. You know, an easy way. So that's where a lot of the misconceptions with the trans people come from. You know, right away they see the word trans and they see the word gender. Well, okay, that's sex. You know, they're gay, they're lesbian, they're whatever. You know, we are not. You know, the majority of us are not. Once I get into my bio a little bit, I'll tell you a little bit about that as far as myself. I have friends that do, you know, date the same gender, but that's their choice, just like everybody else has a choice. When we were born, transgender people really didn't have a choice. You know, we were born this way. It's not like we woke up one morning and said, okay, I want to be a female, or I want to be a male. You know, that it's not a choice. It's scientifically proven and medically proven that before we're born, there's a part of the brain called the utero, and that tells us whether we're male or female. So what happens is, in my case, before I was born and I was still in the womb, that part of my brain became more dominant than the male part, which made me identify as female, but I got the male parts, if that makes any sense. So, you know, and it's the opposite way around for females to males. Okay, it's the same thing, but opposite. Then you have what they call pangender, and their pangender is somebody that identifies as both. You know, I have a friend of mine that wakes up one morning and she wants to be a guy. The next morning she wants to be the girl. You know, and that's the way she lives her life, so imagine that. I mean, I thought I had it rough trying to live two lives, you know. But yeah. So I'm a very informal person, and I want this to be an interactive session if possible. I want you guys to be involved. I want you to ask questions. You know, if I say something and you have a question on your mind, please don't be afraid to ask. You know, you can ask anything you want to ask. I am very open about my identity. I do not get embarrassed. I do not get mad. You know, so whatever you want to ask, you can ask. Okay? I'll answer anything. I'll even answer if it's not right, but no. So, a little bit about me as a person. I was about 6 years old when I figured out that I was different, that I can remember. I can remember back that far. That was 52 years ago. There, I just gave you my age, which we're not supposed to do. But, and back then, you know, there was no information or anything. You know, I never told anybody. You know, my actions were more on the feminine side. You know, we would have family get-togethers. I would hang around my female cousins. I would hang around my sisters. You know, I would hang around my aunts. And my dad always got mad at me, and he says, my name was Richard. He says, Richard, he said, you need to hang with the guys. And I couldn't do that. I wasn't comfortable. And that's the way I spent my whole life. To jump forward a little bit, I got in my teen years. I had some friends, male friends, that I hung around with only because I had to please my parents. I wasn't pleasing myself. I was pleasing everybody else. And I was not comfortable with that. They got me into hunting. They got me into fishing. You know, I couldn't stand it. You know, I'd much rather stay home, play Barbies or something, but, you know. And in my teen years, I got in school, you know, I was bullied. I was picked on. You know, I was called faggot. I was called gay. I was called sissy. There's times I went home, my face was bloody. I remember one time in the wintertime, they took me down to the creek near the bus stop and dragged me down to the creek and packed me full of snow. And I walked home and I looked like a snowman. And my skin was just bright red. So back school wouldn't do nothing about it. We didn't have bullying laws back then. And we more or less don't have them now. So to move on quickly, I was 22 years old. I got married. And my wife had no idea about me when she married me or when we were dating. 2 months after we were married, I spilled the beans and told her. And it was kind of a shock to her. She looked at me and she said, okay. She says, you can do this. She said, but you can only do it in the house, and I don't want to see it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want nothing to do with it. So that's the way we lived our lives probably for 30 years. We've been married 36 years this year, and we're going to stay married until we're dead. She is a activist also for the trans community. She helps spouses of people that are transitioning and transgender people deal with the issues that she had to deal with. So she's got the experience. She is a director of a spouses group in Harrisburg, and the spouses group has about 50 spouses right now. So there's more of us than what you think. We're all over the place. So I have 21 years old. I had a daughter, and she's now 35. And I have 2 grandkids. I have a grandson and a granddaughter, 9 and 10. I just recently came out to them in February of this year, and they are fine. I have no issues. I have no issues with any family, friends, co-workers, which I'll get into later. Somebody that transitions from their birth gender to the gender they identify have to expect. I had to expect that I would lose everything that I had. You know, I had to expect that I was going to lose my wife. I was going to lose my home. I was going to lose my job. I was going to lose my friends, everything. You know, you have to expect that because people just don't understand it. You know, and luckily, not to brag, but I'm very, very lucky. I have lost nothing. You know, I have actually gained people. I've gained friends. I've gained, you know, relatives that I haven't never talked to in 30 years. You know, I just met with a few. We went to vacation down in the Outer Banks and 3 weeks ago, and I found out my one aunt was down there, and I haven't seen her in over 30 years. You know, so I stopped to see her, and she didn't know who I was, of course. You know, so, but she was happy. You know, I got big hugs and everything, so it's pretty cool. Okay, enough about me for right now. Does anybody have any questions on any of that? Somebody's got to have something. Yes.
So your wife was accepting of it for 30 years, or she wasn't up until?
She was not accepting up until about 8 years ago.
What changed that?
She's the type of person that if she's interested in something, she will dig and dig and dig until she gets all the information she can. And back when I was going through this, there was no information on trans issues. Transgender back then wasn't even thought of, the word. It was more or less transsexual. Okay, so that's where a lot of the confusion came when I said about, you know, sex and gender is two different things. So she took it upon herself and found out all the information she could find. And she thought, you know what? This isn't really that bad. You know, right now, I am a better person than I was back then. Okay, I'm a lot calmer. I'm a lot more respectful of her. I mean, I got to admit, you know, a lot of people don't tell their bad parts, but, you know, I do admit, you know, through those 30 years, you know, 28 years, whatever, I treated her very bad. You know, she had a very high-profile job. She had a dress very good, you know, wear nice dresses and everything like that. I would not allow that. She was not allowed to wear dresses. She was not allowed to wear heels. She was not allowed to get her nails done. I would not allow her to get her ears pierced. Guess who does now? But no. And I never knew why. And I went through about 3 years of therapy, and I found out once my wife started to go in therapy with me, you go by yourself for a while, then you go as a couple. And the therapist my wife brought this issue up. I didn't. I was hiding that. And she brought it up, and I thought, oh no, now what am I going to do, you know? I got to tell this out now. And the therapist asked me, why'd you do that? I said, to be honest with you, I said, I don't know. I have no idea. So she kept questioning me and asking me and drilling my brain, and finally it came out that the whole thing was I was jealous. You know, I was jealous that she could actually wear those clothes and go out looking nice, and I couldn't. I couldn't do it. So that's that story, and you know, I feel bad about it to this day. I mean, the more I talk about that, the more I'm about ready to break down. So if I do, forgive me. I can get very emotional about some of this stuff, and because it is hard, it is bad. A lot of it that we do is not right. But us trying to hide who we are and hide our identities from everybody, you kind of fall into that rut that, you know, you're not talking to anybody about anything. You know, you're pretty much living on your own. So, any other questions? Did I answer that okay? Okay. Yes?
So you have children now who are making the transition when they're around 6 years old with the help of their parents and a therapist. I was wondering what your view is on that.
The youth today growing up as trans is having a very rough time. I have a meeting with a youth group next week, the LGBT Center in Harrisburg, and there's probably about 20 youth at that meeting. And they asked me to come in and speak to them about how they can approach their parents and tell them that they're trans or that they're gay or lesbian. Parents still do not seem to want to accept the fact that their child does not want to be who they were born as. Okay? A lot of it's lack of education. You know, yes?
Well, I'm talking about 6-year-old children,
Mhm.
and they're going to school,
Mhm.
and they're already doing the transition at that age.
Okay.
I
Well, there again, I mean, there's youth children going to school, and the schools, there's no education on this. The schools are not providing education. So they are being bullied. A lot of them are being bullied. They're being called names, just like I was back then, except it's a little bit worse now. People don't have boundaries today. At least back then, they beat me up and they ran away. Today they'll beat you up and stay there. So to answer your question, they do have a very rough time today. The faculty, the schools, they're working on programs to be for accepting this and everything, and it just seems for some reason it's not working. I spoke at a couple schools already to the faculty and to some of the students, and that's the vibes I got. They didn't have any idea, like I asked you guys, what the word transgender was. Hardly anybody could answer it. So how are they going to deal with it? If you don't know what it is, you can't deal with it. So, did I hit the point or not?
No, they think these children are girls, but biologically they're boys.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem to be doing rather well until they hit puberty.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they have to get the hormones and other treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But they seem to be making a very, very good adjustment.
Yeah, I mean, they are doing an okay adjustment in their own way. I mean, they are kind of being more educated than what the faculty and their parents are nowadays. They're actually looking for information, the majority of them. How do I want to say it? It's more, kind of more accepted nowadays than what it has been. So that makes it a little bit easier for them. Back in my days, nobody accepted that. We were, the parents and everybody back in that generation were set in their ways. And I still run into that a lot when I'm out. Yes.
I was wondering, what do you think can be done to make people transitioning feel more accepted?
I couldn't hear you.
What can be done to help people transitioning feel more accepted?
Education. That's the number one thing. Education and visibility. That's why I became a solo advocate. I fully transitioned 3 years ago, and just recently transitioned at my job this year. I did it to bring visibility, to gain visibility for the trans community. There again, education is number one, but you can't educate somebody on something if they can't see what they're being educated on. Okay, Caitlyn Jenner came out how long ago? Caitlyn Jenner, when she first came out, she was a great asset to the trans community. She brought visibility out there, that there's people like that out there. The majority of the people, and might be a lot of you in this room, that's the only trans person you ever saw. Or it could be the first trans person you ever heard talk. And she brought that out into the open, where people can see that it is something. Right after she came out, there was a football player that came out. And, it's things like that. But the majority of the people only see the high-profile people that are coming out. So once they come out, do their thing, like Caitlyn Jenner, she had her 2 episodes of her TV show, I Am Kate. Boom, it's gone, she's gone. You don't hear nothing about her no more. And, my opinion is, everybody has their own opinion, but my opinion is on her is, it was okay when she came out, that was great, it got visibility to us, but the way she portrayed the life of a trans person is not the real thing. She had all the money in the world, she could leave the house and not have to worry about nothing, she had bodyguards, so it was not the real thing. The real thing is very rough. Okay, who was you? Okay, go ahead.
When you're first meeting someone who you've never met before, who perhaps appears to be transgender, but you're not really sure because you don't know them, what is the best way to approach them, be respectful, and addressing them and getting to know them? What's the best way to go about it?
if you have any doubts, if you meet somebody and you have any doubts, the best thing that I can tell you to do is treat them with respect, for number one. The other thing you can do, don't be afraid to ask what their pronouns are. You know, don't be afraid to ask them, you know, do you go by her or do you go by him? You know, or something like that. That's what we look for. You know, we don't want to be portrayed as some freak, you know, and people just come up and, you know, they walk by and see somebody and they just laugh at them. You know, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of us out there that are not very well presentable. You know, everybody has their own way, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's different things for different folks, you know. It's just whatever you like. In my early days, you know, I used to go out and I gotta admit, you know, I looked like a slut walking down the street. You know, then you wonder why everybody looks at you and calls you names. You know, it took me years to figure out, okay, you don't walk down through the mall in a skirt almost up to your butt, you know, and heels 6 inches high. You don't do it. You don't see nobody doing that, you know. So boom, there it clicked in my head. Okay, start dressing down a little bit, you know. So is that okay? Did I answer your question? Okay. Yes.
Speaking of trans visibility, what's your opinion on cisgender actors portraying trans characters? Does that offend you because it's still a misrepresentation, but it's also visibility?
I can probably tell you that the reason most of this is happening with cis people playing trans people is the majority of the transgender people do not want to be seen. They don't want to be outed. You know, I was in that predicament. You know, I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want my identity known. You know, when I was asked to do this session, they still have my last name as my alias last name from when I was just out. You know, just being me. I hid myself with different names. Having the cisgender people play trans people, I think, is good and bad, both. It shows, I think it shows society that there are cisgender people out there that want to know about us, that are trying to portray us, you know, in the proper way. I have a lot of trans people that are actors that I know personally. Jazz Jennings, one of them. I'm sure you all heard of her. There's another one called, her name is Nikki Maines. She and her family got the restroom rights up in the state of Maine. So there is a lot out there, but to answer your question, I don't know why they're not searching for more trans people that are out there that are out, like myself. A friend of mine has a son, and he's a producer out in San Francisco. And he approached me, and he asked me if he could do a movie on my life. And I'm not going to hold my breath on it because it's just a thought. But, you know, it would be good. I'll play myself. You know, I'm not having nobody play it. You know, I'm sure my wife will play herself. So, but yeah. You know, like I say, I think it's good and bad. Personally. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
Have you gone through gender reassignment surgery, and is that something that is generally covered by insurance and that sort of thing?
I have not gone through the surgery, and the majority of your insurances right now do not cover that. Depending on what doctor you get, you want to get a good doctor that's not going to botch you all up. You know, you're talking anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 to have it done right. At my age right now, you know, being 58 years old, that's not important to me. You know, a lot of people ask me that, and my main answer to that is the parts a person has does not make them who they are. Okay, you can be female and still have the male parts. I mean, who cares? you know. Now, if you're very sexually active or something like that, yeah, it might make a difference, you know. But, you know, once you're on hormones and things like that, you know, all your functions like that tend to cease, you know. So another reason I will not have it right now is because of the risk of infection. There's a very high risk of infection with that kind of surgery. And I cannot see fighting for 50 years to where I am today, go in and lay on a table, get infected, and pass away, and I didn't even get a chance to live yet. You know, that to me is kind of crazy. But there are people in the community that feel they're not complete unless they do this. You know, top surgery, that's a different story. That's an everyday thing nowadays. You know, so that's a different story. You're told not to worry about that for the first 3 to 5 years on hormones, so I ain't worried about it. But yeah. Anything else? Yes.
I know you said that they wanted to like hang out with you guys more, but how accepting was he when you found out that you?
Very good question. I just came out to him in February this year, and I wrote a 3-page letter, and I was present when he read the letter. And the reason I did the letter was because he's 79 years old, and he has a very bad heart. And I didn't even want to come out to him, to be honest with you, because I thought I was going to kill him. So I took the chance. I gave him the letter. He read the letter, and my wife was sitting next to me, and she looked at me, and I looked at her, and there's no expression whatsoever. And I thought, uh-oh, I'm in trouble now. So he read the letter, and he looked at me, and he says, you know what? He said, this explains a lot. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, well, every Halloween you always wanted to be a girl. He said, you always hung around the girls when everybody was doing other things, playing, you know, the guys are here. You always hung around the girls. You didn't bother with the guys. And the biggest thing he said I noticed was when you were old enough to stay home and we went on vacation, he said, you stayed home, and he said, and he pointed at me, he says, I know you wore your mother's clothes. So I thought, oh, wow, parents do know everything. You know, but, you know, back then I was kind of dumb, I guess, because now that I am fully transitioned, a woman can tell when somebody is in her clothes. So I never thought of that. But, yeah.
So, like, compared to your dad, did your mom know we had it before your dad?
My mom did not know. My mom passed away in 2006. The only thing I can say about my mother is I'm sure she would be very happy and supportive. She gave me a photo album 2 months before she passed away, and it had all my baby pictures in it. And when I was little, I had a very bad skin rash. I had eczema really, really bad, and I was in the hospital for a year. And I was looking through these pictures, and it had me, in the majority of the pictures, I was wearing dresses. And I asked my dad that, you know, I said, well, why am I in all these dresses back then? And he said, it's because we couldn't have tight clothing on you because of your skin, plus it made us easier for you to for us to treat your skin. And I said, oh, okay. So then, about 2 weeks after that, my wife had the book out looking at it, and she says, hey, come here. So I went over and to see what she wanted. The very last page of that photo album, there was a picture, but it was upside down and back, and so you couldn't see it. And on the back of that picture, it said on there, here's my daughter. I always wanted a girl, and it was me in like a white communion dress. So I think she knew. And another thing that I bring up, I haven't told a lot of people that, but I have been telling them this because it is a big issue with the trans community, and that's suicide. People that are not accepted and stuff, they can't handle the pressure, so they attempt suicide, or they do suicide to themselves. 3 years ago, my wife went to Florida on vacation for 3 days, and I stayed home, and I was myself for the whole week because I took off work. I thought, yay, okay. You know, so we called each other in the morning and at night, and Wednesday we had a big fight at night, and I found out that she failed all of her classes that she went down there for credits for her job. So when she got back, she really got chewed out for it, and that was my fault. And I thought to myself, you know what? I can't do this anymore. So it was 10:30 at night, and we live in the mountains, and there was a place up in the mountain that I went to when my mom was sick and everything, and just went up there and thought about things. And 10:30 at night, I go out and I jump on my four-wheeler, and I go up to this place, and it overlooks the valley, and you can see all the lights and everything. It was really pretty, and I reached down, I pulled my pistol out, and I put it to my head, and I was going to shoot myself because I couldn't put her through this no more. So I sat there. The moment I pulled it up to about here, I heard words saying, no, no, don't do it. There's nothing in the world worth taking your life for. And I still say to this day, it was my mom. You know, people think I'm crazy, but so be it. And I know what I heard and what went through my mind, so. So I put the gun away and went back home, went to bed. And that was my turning point of transition. It's either a do or a die. And so I did. So, and suicide is very, very high in the trans community. You know, you're talking maybe 3 to 5 out of 10 adults. Youth is even higher than that. Anything else? Okay. Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Have you experienced any challenges being viewed as a woman in society instead of a man?
Yeah, a lot of times. Just for instance, when I came out at work, I told everybody personally about it and everything, which I can get into a little bit later, but there's a lot of contractors and stuff that I work for at work that come in and do work for us in the facility, and they've known me I've been there 15 years, and they know me, the majority of them knew me for 15 years. And when I transitioned, I was still sitting at the same desk. Well, you know, a couple people came in and asked where Rich was. And I said, he got terminated. And they all got really sad. You know, well, he was so fun. He played around. He joked around with us. You know, that's a shame. You know, what'd he do? I said, I don't know what he did. I just took his position over. And to this day, I never told them any different, and they still treat me as Janelle. A funny thing happened a couple weeks ago. The UPS guy came in, and the same instance with him. You know, he knew me all these years, and he come in. I was on vacation, and then he came back, and he said, where's everybody at? I said, well, I'm here. He says, well, I need somebody to sign for this. He said, Rich always signed for it. I said, well, I can sign for it. I said, that's not a problem. You know, so I signed for it, and he said, well, that's a shame. He said, we had a lot of fun with him here. I said, yeah. I said, a lot of people are saying that. You know, so a few weeks ago, I was out behind the facility, and he pulls in, he goes to leave, and I heard this horn honking, and he went like this. So I thought he was waving, so I waved to him. Well, next thing you know, the horn went again. And I went over, he goes like this, so I went over and I said, yeah. I said, can I help you? He said, yes. He said, there's something I've been wanting to ask you for the past 2 weeks. He said, but I haven't had the nerve to ask you. I said, well, what is that? He said, would you be willing to go out some evening for a couple drinks with me? And my response was, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that because my spouse probably would not appreciate that. Okay, thank you. So, yeah. Yeah, so I have never had any negativity from anybody yet. I do not look anything, not even comparable to what I did as a guy. Maria here, she knows. So, but yeah. Did I see a hand up back there? No? Yeah?
I was wondering, like, do you get sad or regret it when they say, like, oh, like, you mentioned and stuff like that? Like, do you feel bad, like, on yourself?
I used to, but I don't anymore. I know who I am. You know, and if nobody else wants to know who I am, that's their problem. You know, if somebody misgenders me or something like that, which I do get now and then at work, but everybody knew me as Rich for so many years, you know, they'll still say Rich or he. You know, that does not bother me. I don't care. You know, I know who I am. You know, and they'll get it sooner or later. You know, and sometimes they'll say, well, okay, Rich. I say, well, excuse me? I said, okay, Rich. I said, excuse me, you know, and then they'll get it right. You know, so it's just kind of a reminder type thing. If you're made fun of or anything like that, you know, the restrooms were a big issue and still are. I have never been approached in the women's bathroom yet by anybody. Like I said, we were just down in North Carolina. The HB2 bill down there is a very huge issue down there and around the world. I made it a point to go in every women's bathroom that I had seen just to see if there was going to be an issue. You know, and I went into a lot of them, whether I had to go to the bathroom or not. And, you know, people talked to me in there. You know, we carried on conversations, you know, and there was no issues whatsoever. So a lot of that's just all media hype and the bigots and the organizations, religious organizations and stuff that are against LGBT people. So, but yeah. Did I answer your question okay? Okay, yes?
Was there anything that influenced the picking of the name Janelle?
Yes. I went through a couple names. Back when my wife started accepting me, she named me Rachel. Okay, you know, she said you need the name that starts with an R. So I used that for a while. Then I didn't really like it. So then I picked the name Christina, and I used that for many years. And when I decided I wanted to transition, I thought, you know what? I'm going to try to find a female name that means the same as Richard does, because I wanted to keep that part in my life. I don't want to lose my whole male life like a lot of trans people do. You know, they want to forget everything. I don't want to do that, because that was me. That was my life. You know, and so I picked Janelle because Janelle means pretty much the same as Richard. It took me a long time to find it. You know, I did a lot of searching, but, you know, it finally came up, and that's why I picked it. My wife don't like it, but I told her I don't like your name either. Her name's Cindy. I didn't marry her for her name. I married her for her, you know. But yeah, so. Anything else? Yes?
After seeing how everything worked out for you, the way it all unfolded, the work, the dad, everything with your wife, you would like change genders like sooner?
I do, yes, but I'm the type of person that has priorities. My priority was keeping my family together. That meant more to me than becoming me at that time. I suffered a lot because of that, you know, because I neglected myself to make everybody else happy. And that's not a very good thing to do. But in the trans community, a lot of trans people think everything is about them. You know, everything's about the trans person. But in a relationship, whether you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, you know, whatever, that's really not true. Because when you decide to transition, everybody that you know and everybody around you transitions with you. You know, you don't do it alone. You know, they all do it in different ways. But, you know, like I said, my number one thing was keep the family together, and I did that. The other thing was financial reasons. And another big issue was, back then I didn't know what was the matter with me either, you know. I knew I was different, but I didn't know I was trans, you know, until I started going to doctors and stuff and being diagnosed with gender dysphoria. So, did I answer okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes?
Do you have any advice for people with gender dysphoria?
Yeah, counseling. Counseling. Gender dysphoria is a killer. Gender dysphoria is like a cancer. It just gets stronger and stronger if you let it go. I was just talking to a person before I came here on Facebook. She has dysphoria very, very bad. She threatened to take her life. So hopefully I might have curbed that a little bit. You know, counseling, education, be who you are. Hopefully people will talk with you, accept you. You know, issues like that. But anything else? Yes?
What is gender dysphoria?
Gender dysphoria is I'm going to try to do this very simple. Gender dysphoria is a disease kind of like that eats at your mind because you can't be you. Okay, kind of like me, you know, in the earlier years, I couldn't be me, and that just kept getting stronger and stronger, that I kept getting meaner, you know, I kept getting hateful. You know, I treated my family terrible. I distanced myself from everybody just so I would not hurt them because of this dysphoria. You know, so it's a very complex type thing. Usually you end up with psychiatrists, psychologists, you know, diagnosis for it. I've had both, you know, and I chose to do that on my own. Nobody forced me to do it because I wanted to deal with myself because I didn't want to find myself laying in a box. So, anything else? Okay, we better get back on the topic here. Transgender justice. That's what this is all about, this session. Transgender justice, us in the transgender community have to ask the question, what justice? We have very little justice. Pretty much the only justice we have right now is the restroom issue in schools and the non-discrimination acts in 31 counties throughout Pennsylvania. The state has an anti-discrimination ordinance against the LGBTQ community that nobody within the state can discriminate against the state employee. That was just signed by Governor Wolf. I was at the news conference on that. I was on 21 News about that and interviewed. Justice for the trans community is getting better, but not fast enough. There's an act in the House right now, and it's been sitting there for over 3 years, and it's called the PA Fairness Act. It's House Bill 1510. And there's one senator, Darrell Metcalf, that is holding that up. He is very much opposed to LGBTQ people having equal rights as everybody else. And he's not the only one, there's quite a few. All the senators and legislators that I meet with are all opposed to it. And I meet with them to listen to their oppositions and hopefully try to change their minds or their decisions. I don't tell them they have to do it, because if you tell them that, they're just going to laugh at you. And that's what a lot of these big organizations do. I've made some headway on probably about a dozen of them. You know, so it's getting better. I feel the Fairness Act will pass within the next 2 years if things keep going the way they are. If they do pass the Fairness Act, it will be illegal to discriminate or harass any LGBTQ person in Pennsylvania. So if I'm out there and somebody harasses me, you call the police and they haul them off. Simple as that. No questions. Yes?
What can we do to speed that bill up?
We need more people like me to be out there. They just had a meeting trying to get the bill out of the committee. And from what I understand, there was maybe 20 people there. That's not good. I would have been there, but I was on vacation. So we need people to be out there, be visible, be heard. You know, speak your mind. You know, say everybody's created equal. Everybody's supposed to be created equal. I don't understand it. You know, we're people just like anybody else. We should have the same rights as anybody else. Like me, I should have every right in the world to go into the women's bathroom. You know, I don't have any issues with that. Never did. But I've known people that have had issues with that. I have a lot of friends that will go into a restaurant. And in fact, I was in a restaurant not too long ago, and this gay couple come in holding hands. The restaurant manager came out and asked them to leave. And that's legal. That's legal in Pennsylvania to do that. Now, them 31 counties that I said about, they have anti-discrimination ordinances. It is not legal for them to do that there. But from what I'm finding out is these municipalities don't want to fight it because it costs so much money. So we lose again. Okay, that get you okay? Okay. Same with employers. Employers in Pennsylvania have the right to fire any LGBTQ person that applies for a job or is already working there. If you go into a facility that has an employer that has does not have a policy for gender identity discrimination against it, you can go in there and have an interview and they won't hire you because of that. I've had friends that went in and came out to their employer just as I did. Luckily, my employer has that policy. And this person went in, came out to her employer, and she was terminated on the spot. No questions. And that's what the Fairness Act is going to stop. And it has to stop. You know, there's no reason. If you can do your job, it doesn't matter who you are. You know, if you can do that job, it doesn't matter. And you know, people need to realize that. Another issue that I've noticed too in employment is I know a person that came out to their employer the next day, put a picture of her and her spouse on her desk. Her supervisor came in, saw the picture, walked her out the door because of that. You know, it's not right. You know, who cares? You know, that person could do the job. Who cares? So, we don't get it. So, when I came out at work, which was July, go ahead.
So I was wondering, how can you try to change people's opinions? Or not change it, but what's the best thing that you can do over time for families or just friends or in general of people with the LGBTQ community?
Educate. We go back to, everything goes back to educate. Show families, like I did, you know, show them that they're number one. You know, show them that they, you know, that you care about them. You know, there's a lot of people in the LGBT community that, you know, if their families aren't going to accept them or support them, they don't want nothing to do with them. You know, they walk away. You know, you can't do that. You have to show them that, you know, you value their opinion even if it's not right. You know, because eventually, you know, they're going to probably come around. And I was just working with the mayor of Carlisle on an ordinance, and we just had a town meeting. And I said to the borough council at the end of the meeting, I said to them, I addressed them and I addressed the audience, and I said, let me ask you all a question. I said, and I hope it hit your heart really hard. I said, what if your child came to you and said, I am gay, I am lesbian, or I am trans? I said, are you going to disown that child, or are you going to love that child the same as you did before you knew that? I said, if your answer is disown, I said, you should never have had that child. And it brought tears out. I mean, it hit home. I had a lot of people come up to me afterwards and talk to me about that. You know, and it's true. I mean, you have a child. You want to love that child no matter what. Just like me, you know, if my child didn't accept me or support me, I'd still love her for who she is. You know, you just learn to deal with it. You have to deal with it. You know, you can't neglect them and put them out there because they could harm themselves because of that. So you got to think, you know, an answer to your question. You have to think of others, you know, and not only yourself. I mean, everybody says, you know, I help them out, try to help them out and stuff, and they say, well, you know, I have to be me. I'm not comfortable unless I'm me. I understand that. You know, and it's true, but like I said before, it's not all about us. You know, it's about everybody that you'll have any kind of relations with. So, when I came out to my employer, I went as high up in HR as I could go, and they flew somebody in from our main office in Toledo, Ohio, and I talked with her for about 2 hours, and she looked at me and she says, "You got to be kidding me." I said, "Why would you say that?" She says, "I can't believe that this picture is you," because I showed her a picture of me as Janelle, because you never come out to somebody as the person that you want to be. Okay, you always do it as your birth person. We went to my supervisor and our HR in the facility. We told them. They both hugged me, congratulated me. They wanted to send letters out to all the staff. We have 250 employees in there. I said, no. I said, I do not want to do it that way. And she kind of looked at me like, okay, well, you're not running Manor Care. And it doesn't matter, when you do something like that, you have to be in control. And I said, I want to come out and tell everybody personally. Well, how are we going to do that? I said, we're going to have little small group meetings until I get to everybody. I said, if it takes a one-on-one, I said, that's fine. I'll come in on my time off and do it for nothing. And that's what I did. It took me 2.5 weeks to tell everybody. And I did it that way because when I was on the news, a couple people in the facility saw me on the news and figured out it was me. And I knew it was going to happen, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to be on TV. But it wasn't the first time. But so I thought to myself, you know what? They respected me. Nobody said a word. I didn't even know they saw me until one girl came up to me and told me. And I told our HR person, I said, they respected me enough not to say anything all this time. And that was 2 months. I said, now I got to return that respect to them and tell them personally what I'm doing. And everybody, I had no negativity at all about it. It gave me a chance to educate them on what trans actually is, because there again, a lot of them didn't know. So, it went very well. And that's, I'm kind of very lucky for that too, because a lot of places, even with the policy in effect, still have issues, but, luckily I have had no problems. Other sister facilities, I've been to a few of them already, and I haven't had any issues there. As you kind of figure, the word got around pretty quick. So, it was good. I'm glad I did it. Because if I wouldn't have done it, I wouldn't be there right now. So, I don't know where I'd be. Yes? I do have kids. I have one daughter. She's 35. And she's very accepting and supportive. In fact, her and I, Saturday night, are going to my 40th class reunion. The first reunion I was ever at. There's 2 people that know of me now, and that's it, out of 500 and some people. And I know there's 225 signed up for the reunion, so this could be a little bit interesting. I was informed 2 days ago by the organizer that they're going to have a contest of the most changed classmate in 40 years. Wonder who's going to get that. I might be surprised, though. Never know. Yes? For the longest time, she didn't want nothing to do with it. She was in denial. I mean, because think about it. She married a guy. She didn't marry a woman. So she's actually losing her husband. It's kind of like I died. So she's grieving. She grieved. And once she understood what it was and everything, and seen the different person that I became as far as being respectful and caring and loving, I wasn't any of that for so many years. And like she told me, she said, I could have left and I could have got somebody else, but that somebody else could have beat me. That somebody else could have been an alcoholic, a drug addict, anything. She said, this is way better than that. So it is, if you stop and think about it. What am I hurting? Nothing. Her biggest fear was, she'd be out in public with me and people would think she's a lesbian. you know, and she finally got over that. You know, if that's what people want to think, fine, let them think that, you know. She's like me. She knows who she is. So she was going to be here with me today, but she couldn't get off work, so yes.
Are you accepted well into her family?
Yes, I am, because there's only one left. Her mom's 89 years old. We told her about 2 months ago. She told her without me there because of the way she is. And she looked at my wife, and excuse the French, she says, "You got to put up with that shit?" You know? And my wife looked at her and she says, "Yes, I am." You know, so a couple weeks went by, then we decided that it's time for her to meet Janelle, and I went down and I walked in the room and my wife says, "Here's Janelle. What do you think?" She looks up and down and all over. "Well, I like your outfit." I said, "Thank you." "And that hair, that's not your hair." I said, "No, it's not, because I don't have no hair." You know, and then she says, looks a little more, and she says, "And those boobs, they're not yours either." I said, "No, not yet." But yeah, I mean, it went well. She's still a little skitty. She says, "Oh, I don't care who you are." She says, "You're always going to be my Richard." So, you know, and I'm okay with that. She's 89 years old. I'm not going to fight it. You know, it's not worth. You got to pick your battles sometimes, you know, and that's not a battle I need to pick on. So, but yeah. Back to some of the rights that we don't have. We go out to restaurants. It's very hard because trans people like to be out and about. You go into a restaurant, there's a lot of them that will ask you to leave, especially the ones that are not very presentable, you know, and I have nothing against that. I respect them people. You know, they're trying and they do the best they can, you know, and some of them don't want to transition, and you don't have to transition to be trans. So, you know, they do it part-time. You know, they want to go out for a weekend or something, they, you know, become whoever and go out. You know, but, you know, there again, you know, everybody says, you know, you see people out there that are not presentable and things like that, that gives us a bad name. You know, the ones that do present. And in a way, they are correct. But then in a way, you got to stop and think, you know, that person's being who they are. You know, you're being who you are, and you don't want nobody ridiculing you. You know, why would you want to do it to them? So, but yeah. I mean, I've had a couple people come up to me, you know, and they're not very presentable, and they're having issues trying to find a job. You know, and I felt just like saying, you know, stop, go look in the mirror, clean yourself up, and go look for a job, you know? Sometimes you got to revert back to your male self to get the job. You know, once you get the job, work at it for 3 to 6 months and then transition. You know, simple as that. I mean, that's not saying that you're not going to get terminated, but, you know, if your employer has the policies in place, you won't get terminated. OSHA, Occupational Safety Hazard Administration, I had meetings with them. They adopted a law nationwide, United States, that every employer has to let trans people use the bathroom of the gender they identify. So if you're at work, and if I'm at work and we didn't have a policy and I went in the women's room and they told me I couldn't do that, I file a grievance, they're going to fine them. And the fines are very, very steep. And they are fining a lot of employers for that. So the bathroom also has to be within a certain distance away so that you don't harm your body by holding it, you know, trying to get a half a mile away to the bathroom. You know, because some places now have what they call family bathrooms or just a regular unity gender bathrooms, something like that, common bathroom. And they're clear at the other end of the building, you know? And you can't hold it that long if it's a big building. You know, so that's against the law. They have to let you use the bathroom of the gender you identify now. So, and You know, it does happen. And as I said, schools now, they have to let the students use the bathroom they gender identify as. You know, that's a law. President Obama and the Justice Department just made that law not too long ago. And we have schools that are trying to not go by that law. And they're finding very, very stiff penalties. I think there was one just up in Connecticut that tried to go against it. And they're losing, so. But yeah, I mean, so the justice for us is not there, to make a long story short. We have a long way to go. Hopefully the PA Fairness Act will be passed. And if you're ever asked to vote on that, you know, I'm not telling you what to do, but please say yes. I mean, it's your choice, you know, it's your opinion, and I respect that. So, you know, I just try to get everybody to say yes. If you hear somebody talking against that, or if you're ever out and you see somebody really harassing a trans person or something, if you can tell that they are trans, you know, don't be afraid to approach them people. You know, just ask them, you know, just politely ask them, you know, have respect for people. You know, you don't need to go out and ridicule people, call them names and stuff. How would you like somebody to do that to you? You know? There was a girl that went into the bathroom not too long ago, and she came up to me and she says, Janelle, she says, this woman came in the bathroom and she was raising Cain because I was in there, and her husband was waiting outside the door, and when I went outside the door, he confronted me, and he wasn't very nice. And she said, what do I do then? I said, you know what I do? I said, if somebody would do that to me, I'd look at them and I'd say, if you know what genitals I have, you're the pervert, you're the one doing something wrong. So, and it works. I mean, I never had to do it, but I know people that use that phrase already, and it works. You know, they'll just more or less turn around and walk away. So, let's see. Is there any questions so far? Anything else anybody has? Yeah, no, maybe. Don't be shy. I know they're out there. That's pretty much what I got. I mean, I covered everything that I can think of on justice for trans people. If you have any questions, or if you want to talk with me one-on-one, I will stay here as long as it takes. I don't have a problem with that. You know, as I said, I am very open, so I'm not afraid to answer any questions that you may have. So I want to thank you all for coming. It's been a great audience. Thank you. Thank you. And I hope in a way maybe I opened up some eyes and educated you people at least a little bit. I look at it this way: if I help one person, I did my job. You know, so. Okay?